Y'all excuse me, but when I look at that, I cannot help but chuckle. But anyway, we have had a busy time. And if James comes running in and out while I talk to y'all, a little table talk this morning, this is October 21, 2025, and we have already been busy. If he comes running in and out, don't pay him no mind. I'm just going to include him in the video because I'm here with my kitty cat right there, see? Resting peacefully. And I am going to talk to y'all a while. So I want to give you this verse because I looked this up earlier this morning and it is so true. And I even have it on my refrigerator about God is our refuge. And Jesus is my refuge. He's my older brother. It's Psalms 46:1, which says, He is our refuge and strength, our ever present help in times of trouble. And He helped me today, and I thank you for it, Lord, because when I walked this morning, I had to kind of quit a little early. So we focus on being strong, and then James says, Let's go get our flu shot. Well, I was going to go ahead and do a little table talk, but I said, Let me get my shoes on. And so we went out, and it didn't hurt a bit, but we get our flu shots now, and for the senior citizens, that's what we are. And I've already had fun this morning singing the old gray mare ain't what she used to be. So anyway, we got our flu shot, and there was a guy that had his hair cut in a V. I never saw nothing like it. He was cute as he could be, but what a haircut. I never saw nothing like that when I should have took a picture, but I didn't. He might have not wanted me to. So anyway, my I got my microphone on and it is working. I'll turn this off. So on the way back, you have to pass the wishing well almost. I mean, it's right there on the corner, not far, right there by the Walmart. So he said, We got to check in the wishing well. So we went in and I saw this hat. I said, What a cute hat to the girl. So I tried it on and I made a little video and I thought I'd just wear it while I make this table talk time. Why not? And what am I going to talk about today? Anyhow, the Lord is good, and I am making it today. I finally got started treating my feet. See, James he owns the property next door to me, where my next door neighbor used to live for 40 years or longer, Flory, and we had fights and battles and makeup times, and she's just like a sister, and she still is. And she had to let the house go back, and James bought it. She couldn't keep the mortgage up, and so you know what he did? He bought another house and moved her to another house, and she lived there 5 or 6 years down on Elmwood, and it had a basement. And she's some younger than I am, and she's still alive and still. She just retired from working in her 80s from a factory where they made motorcycle parts, Hitachi. I hear sirens. But if James comes running in and out of here, he's working on that house where she used to live. He's putting if there's a porch in the back. Because when Flory had it, her husband, Allan, which they lived here for many years, they moved here when that house next door to me was a rental property. And Flory and her husband lived in the front apartment, which had a bathroom, and other people lived in the back apartment, which had its own bathroom. Both had kitchens. So it was a 1 bedroom apartment, each one. And her husband lived there. And she had a little girl named Susie. And I used to babysit Susie. And Susie is now getting ready to retire. Fact is, her daughter is now a widow because her husband died about a year ago. And so now little Susie, who I used to babysit, but Flory and Allan, her husband, he was an alcoholic and he got tongue cancer and he was not a Christian. But you know what? The Lord won him over before he passed away without a tongue. He got tongue cancer and they took his tongue out in pieces. And she was still working and she would leave him there and I would go over and visit with him and talk about the Lord and tell him about Jesus and he's going to help you get through this, Allan. But they had this idea. They finally bought the property and lived in the whole thing. Is this too complicated? It's been years. But they lived there in that house and they turned it into a one house and they bought it. And then Allan, after quite a few years, he passed away. But before he did, there was a Baptist pastor that come to visit him that he knew, and he prayed with Allan, and Allan accepted the Lord, got baptized, gave his heart completely to Jesus, and lived 2 or 3 years after that. So we went to his funeral, and they sang that song about "You're Here for a Little While" by Vince Gill. So good. But I love this hat. So I looked it up to see what about it. And you can look up stuff on Google, and it's vintage. But so am I. I'm vintage, right? And I thought it was so cute, and it was $2. So I said, I'm going to buy that and do me a little video of table talking with it. Keep y'all company. Why not? So anyhow, the story of Allan. So when he passed away, Flory, he left her buku money, over $200,000. So she had a grandson, one grandson, Scotty. And so they built him an apartment in the rear of her house. So now that house next door where Flory and Allan lived, and they fought me for years. They didn't want me in the driveway. See, it's a shared driveway, and it was always a point of contention. And I said, you can't do that. It's in the deed that you got to share it forever, because this property and the one next door was owned by a father and son. And the father lived in the Flory's house, and the son built this brick house where I lived since 1963, and then we built an apartment in the rear when we went on the evangelistic field. But they wanted the driveway, and they used to get out there and just carry on about the driveway. And they can't have the driveway. It's a shared driveway. You can't block it. And I had a big piece of property and a big yard in the back where we could park. But when we went on the evangelistic field, that we didn't have any place to park our fifth wheel trailer, which was 35 foot long. And so, what are we going to do? Well, we had enough to in our front yard that if we moved the fence over 8 foot or so and get one electric pole moved, we could park our trailer there. So I called the electric company, and they said, we don't do that. I said, so I kept talking. If you let me talk long enough, I can persuade you. I have a high persuasion. Watch me on YouTube. I tell people that all the time because God only knows what I'm going to say next. But they said, we can't do that. And I said, can I talk to the managers, please, or manager, whoever? So I talked to the manager, and I told him we have a fifth wheel and we can't park it anywhere, and we need to park it there. And we travel full time. It won't be there much, but we need that pole moved. And you know what? The Lord spoke to his heart and said, we can do that. And people said that it can't ever be done. But honey, with God, all things are possible. And so they came and they moved it over to where we could park our fifth wheel. So whenever we would be home in our back apartment that we had added to our house when we went on the evangelistic field to travel full time, we had a place to park our big old camper, whatever size we had. And the last one we had was 45 foot. We had wore one 45-foot one out. So we had another one. And so when Buddy passed away at the age of 63 and went to heaven, that's where that trailer was parked. And Allan got so upset. That was his name. There went my phone again. No, it wasn't. That was part of I'm treating my feet at the same time I'm doing all this. I'm a multitasker, and I love this hat. I may have to wear it again. I may have to wear it to the Walmart. I dress up wherever I go. Sometimes I do that. But anyway, where was it? Oh, yeah, Allan was having a fit. Buddy passed away. He was friendly for a while, but he would sit on his front porch, and he couldn't see all the way down the road like he wanted to see. So he was still alive then. And he would say, when are you going to move that trailer? I said, I can't move that trailer. I want to sell it. I put a for sale sign on it. Nobody wanted it. And then I found out about this place out at Sellersburg that where they let you park stuff and sell it if you had a car for sale, and they didn't charge you nothing. And so I said, Lord, help me move that trailer out there. I had only pulled that trailer one of the other trailers one time. So I said, Lord, help me to know how to hook that thing up and get it out to Sellersburg, which is about 7 or 8 miles out the road. So I told Allan I'm going to move it. So I hooked it up I still had my big old truck. So I hooked up the big old truck. I backed that thing out on the highway. Allan helped me. And I took off for Sellersburg. And I went to Sellersburg. I got to where I was going. And so when I got there, I just left the truck and everything and had someone come and get me and take me home because I have a car at home. I don't need the truck. So I decided to sell it, trailer, truck, and all. And so I put a sign on it. There that goes again. I put a sign on it, and don't you know, somebody bought the whole thing. Let me see if I can skip. Not yet, but I will in a minute. Anyway, I sold that whole thing, and somebody bought it, and they was going to move it down on the river and live in it. They had a place on the river, a piece of property, and they were going to live in it. So I said, fine. And so the Lord took care of that. And it was a miracle of God that I could pull that 45-foot fifth wheel and pull it that far. It had everything. It had a slide out. I guess we'll just keep that background. It won't hurt anything. I'll just keep talking. At least James has not been running in and out, and I've just been sitting in here in my pretty. I looked this up on, you can look it up on Google and see what they're worth, and it said $39 one place. And they said some people sell them for more, but you can get it like at Esty or someplace, one like this. But I paid $2, and I'm a happy woman. So anyway, I'm going to shut it down early today. You won't have no trouble. Oh, my shirt's coming off. Heavens to Murgatroyd. I'm going to talk to you at a later time, and I'm done for right now. So y'all be blessed and walk that path where Jesus would be pleased with you. Bye-bye.